Welcome to the Real Estate Syndication Show. Whether you are a seasoned investor or building a new real estate business, this is the show for you. Whitney Sewell talks to top experts in the business. Our goal is to help you master real estate syndication. And now your host, Whitney Sewell.
This is your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. Today our guest is Maureen Miles. Thanks for being on the show again, Maureen.
Hey, Whitney. How you doing? Thanks for having me.
Honored to have you back on again and just share your expertise. And I encourage the listeners again to go back and listen to show WS 537, where Maureen shared a lot more of her story, and even yesterday's show where we talked about developing that capital budget and just some important tips that she laid out and how she does that and mistakes she's seen in the industry or maybe a few mistakes she's made herself, but we're all learning from and just amazing to see her success. And thank you again, Maureen, just sharing with the listeners and myself. But, you've been in the industry a while now, and we'd love to hear just your success in working with or without partners and what that's looked like, good, bad, lessons learned, and us just dive in there.
Yeah, so I was able to get my very first property, the 100 plus unit. I had actually two partners. One, what I recommend to people too, when you're going to work with a new group of people or a partner for the first time, that you come in with your own entity, so that your apartment buying entity is then owned by your entity, the other people in the group's entity. Like, just be really careful about everybody saying, oh, this is going to be great. We're one big happy family. Let's form a single LLC. We'll all own, individual parts in our own name. So you don't want to get married just yet. You want to make sure you go through a deal is my recommendation, because it's amazing what you find out about people when the deal closes. I always like to avoid ticks in the deal. So whenever I see a group of I'd say three or more, sometimes even three or less, but sometimes you get those ticks. They're always like, what does that guy really do? And nobody knows. But I don't know, but there's sometimes people just hang on. Sometimes we see people say, well, he's bringing equity. He's going to raise the money for us, and that's why he's in the deal. But then one of the things I see is that person fails at raising money, and so they end up paying another part to somebody else for raising money. And so they have new partners, but that person that couldn't raise the money is still kind of hanging out there. When you come in with all your own entities, it's easier for the next deal to get rid of anybody maybe that you want to. You're not married to everybody at once.
But if you had all just joined one entity, that'd be a lot more difficult, right?
Yes, because when you sell that one project, you all get your own money and you go your separate ways. You may find people in that group that you did enjoy working with, and you're like, hey, I really liked working with you, Whitney. Let's do another deal together, but wasn't so crazy about Mary over here. Let's let her, best of luck, but we're going to do this deal on our own, because it is so important. You have to make sure the integrity, your work habits are similar. I always say, I don't ever want to work with a partner that isn't thrilled to, if they don't like working with me, I don't want to work with them either. Because I think eventually over time it just builds up animosity, and it just doesn't go well. And I see it all over, just networking and seeing different people in here. Sometimes you get too many partners. I've seen the situation where there's so many partners that nothing ever gets done. So that's the other thing I warn people about. There'll be 6 people. They all have their job. They're all gung-ho, never get anything done. There's too many people trying to make decisions, and too many okays that are needed. So that's another trip up I see quite a bit. Let's see. So, and then know your partners really well. So there was a particular go out to dinner, spend a couple of times, have a couple. If you ever have a beer or something, make sure you have a couple of beers. I remember one person I was considering working with, a waitress. She came up and I don't know if he didn't have a fork or something happened to his fork, and he's like, I need a fork. And she's like, oh, okay, I'll get you a fork. And she looped around and forgot his fork. And he's like, it's a simple job. It's a fork. You can't remember to bring a fork. And I was like, wow, he just ripped this lady apart.
He was speaking to her like that in front of everybody.
Yeah. So I'm like, wow. So the things you learn about people. Another two guys that I went out with, they ordered a this was a group of people, probably 10 of us at one of the networking events. They ordered a pretty expensive bottle of wine. And then when the bill came, they were very adamant about everybody splitting the whole bill. Oh, it's X amount per person. And that's fine. Some people just roll like that, not a big deal. But then I was with the same people, like at the end of the conference, and I noticed, like when we all had lunch or something, they didn't have any alcohol, and they were very adamant about like, oh no, we should each do our own bill. So I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. Like, so you just gotta look at people just trying to take advantage of others. Like I don't want to work with somebody that I don't want to ever have to put energy into watching my partner is a really big thing. I've always stuck to that, because if you can't trust your partner, you're losing energy in the deal, right? It should always be towards making the deal better and execution of the deal, and how could we run this even better. You can always run a deal tighter, no matter what's going on. You can always save money on capital items. You can always fine tune it more and more. So that's where the energy should be put in. And it's miserable. Like, this job is a roller coaster. You have to make sure you're in the trenches with good people that you trust. It's just key. If you get, if you are venturing down a road with somebody and, you're getting that vibe, or you're just not trusting them, or you see reasons you shouldn't trust them, I say just run, because man, they could mess up your deal. They could do, things that you wouldn't even think people would do to a deal. They could upset other people. You could potentially lose deals because of the way they react to brokers or other people. So that's just something I like to warn people about when they're gung-ho. And I do think partners are important as well, because to get to the finish line, there's a lot of moving parts on these deals. And it's really, I wouldn't say impossible, but almost, I could never have done it myself in the beginning, because there's just so many things that are new to people and that you have to keep track of. There's insurance bids that have to go out. There's lender requirements that you're constantly trying to, please the lender and meet for inspections. And in the same time, you're trying to hire or get a property management company or find your next manager, all while watching the numbers at the property and doing a due diligence and, making sure the survey's right. And there's a ton of items that you have to do. So it really is important. And then there's like fun times too. So there's times when you hit a big score. You you found something awesome about the property you didn't know, or you go to get that playground in and you want to go check it out. It's fun to share that with people as well. Because when you make a property great or something, you go show up, you're by yourself, you're like, oh, you high five yourself. So it's a lot of fun to share the good times with people too.
So what about, I know a lot of people are wondering, okay, splitting up these roles, and deciding who does what. How are you, and I loved what you said too. Like, I don't want to have to put, I don't want to have to put money into watching my partner.
Energy. Putting energy into watching them. Yep.
I think that's so smart. That's so smart. But how do we know from the beginning? When are you like saying, okay, like, this is what you're responsible for. This is what I'm responsible for.
That's hard. So when I first started, I'll go back, because I had a partner when I first started this, and we, after about 3.5 years, we actually went our separate ways. And so I have a lot of, Will, you've met Will before. Will is my business partner now. But my first partner, he was good. He was kind of a box checker person. I used to say, a great partner for me would be someone that wouldn't mind being locked in a room with no windows for 5 days. Like, he loved making sure the LLC dates were like, oh, our LLC has to be renewed or whatever. Like, I hate that stuff. Like I'm just like, let me hire somebody to take care of that. Like, I'm not like, my whole team jokes about my calendar. I'm like, calendar challenged. So I need somebody like with that detail that can just, follow up and just, go through lists and you create lists all the time. Like, I need that person. So I think you find somebody that does the stuff that you hate, and they're out there. You're like, only a crazy person would love to talk to investors and people they don't know all day long. But I love doing that. Like, I could do that all day long. And, some people don't like to talk to anybody. Give them a computer and lists, and they're happy like forever. So you just have to find that kind of yin and yang.
What about how you establish who's paid what? I know that's a question people have asked me and my partner, well, how did you all, split this up? What does that look like?
That's tough because for different deals, there's different shares basically.
Sure.
And, as you, as certain people, there's your kind of functions of like I'd say people have a lot of the questions like that with sponsorship, right? So you kind of have somebody that's responsible. It could be one person, but basically you have equity to bring or like money to raise, right? That's one aspect. Another aspect that the lender is going to look for is net worth. So that's another, I call it legs of the table, right? So you have the one leg of the table is the equity. Another one is net worth. Another one is liquidity. They want to see that you have liquidity. And then the other one is operations experience. So those could be 4 different people. They could be partners stacked where, if we needed to show $1 million cash, if you had 500,000, I had 500,000, we're good. Like, so, you could stack it. Or if we didn't have anything, we could bring in Bill, who's never even set foot on a multifamily and doesn't know the first thing about it, but he has liquidity in the bank, and so that can check the box for the lender too. So there's who gets a piece for what. That's a hard thing because I've seen it all over the place. I really have. The one thing I warn people about is if you have a great network and you're able to reach out to your doctor network, or you're able to reach out to your brother who's, a big wig in some IT company that has funds and you're going to raise money that way or something, and you're a partner in the deal, so you're raising money for your own deal. But just be careful when somebody offers you like 50% of the deal is what that was one of my, I don't think we went over my first ones that tripped me up, Whitney, but my very first deal I almost got involved in, the 100 plus, was somebody that I was going to raise all the funds for, but all of them, they weren't putting any money in. They're supposed to be experienced operators, and they weren't going to give me, I don't think I would have made out with any even percentage, which I shouldn't have even been doing. I've learned the rules since then. But just be careful. If the deal's too good to be true, sometimes there's a reason for that. Sometimes on a bad deal, they'll have somebody new, attempt to raise all the money, or somebody that doesn't know any better. So be aware of that kind of stuff too. And if you're an investor, know how the relationship is with the person you're talking to and the person that's executing the deal. Make sure they are somehow involved in that deal is something I always like to say too, to some degree,
Yeah, I mean, finding a partner, it took me a long time. And I was asked by lots of people to partner, and I turned them down, said no, I wasn't interested. And similar to what you just said, I was asked so many times to raise equity for raise capital for people, and this was the first conversation we'd ever had.
That's crazy, right?
I know.
That's crazy. And it's good that you have integrity, and and that's probably why you got offered so many, because people want to work with honest people. And that's just so important. Somebody that's trustworthy, and that means the world. But yeah, to just think, on your part, that I'm going to go take money from my family or my friends or my network, and I'm just going to give it to somebody that I don't even know what they've done. That's good that you realize that that's kind of a red flag.
Let's shift a little bit. I know we could talk about partnering a lot longer, but I also want to ask you just about, staffing. We're dealing with people on both sides here, whether they're partners, whether they're employed by us, and just really, how you're staffing your company and finding people and vetting people and maybe even your first hire, whether it's a virtual assistant or that executive assistant, but just how you've done that and how you've grown that way.
Yeah, so the EA was a life changer. Like I said, when I need that person that's on top of every little detail, I need that person to follow up to the nth degree on things, especially when you're dealing with investors and all the subscription agreements and all the PPMs. And, you need somebody that is checking every box and, making sure that they say that every T is dotted and I is crossed. That's the way I would do it. I'm just kidding. So, but you need that person to do that. So she was awesome, and she's still with me, Jennifer. Shout out to Jennifer. Woo! So yeah, she's awesome. Awesome to have. So when you find that right person, what I was going to give you a tip. I know you mentioned you're looking for somebody, Whitney, is anybody in our organization above a certain layer, we do a DISC profile. And that person that makes a great EA is somebody on the C cusp, which is like just they're very detail orientated. I think my kind of coach guy I was using because we first started using it, we did our whole team, and I was really curious to see the great managers, where do they fall in the DISC profile? Because I want to find more people like that. If somebody's an outlier, typically they weren't great at their job. It was really interesting how accurate you can start to see. So when you're looking for an EA or somebody that has to be just very exact, an accountant, you'd want to be a C person. They're detailed and they don't want to make mistakes. They want it to be right, and they'll double check it, triple check it. Where, you get somebody that's in I's, like an influencer, or as support, sometimes they have issues confronting people when something's not right. So you wouldn't want that person being a manager that would have to go collect rent, because they're going to have a hard time. They don't like to confront people. Where you get to see, like, it doesn't matter what the issue is or who the person is, she's going after them until it's right. Like that's what you need in that role. So it's kind of awesome. So I would say to learn a little bit about that DISC profile as you hire people, because it really is, it's amazing when you use it and use it correctly, and it's accurate.
Is it important to know your own DISC profile?
Because it'll tell you too how you work with people. Like sometimes I butt heads with certain types of people, but it's all a good thing for me. I don't take anything personally. I think somebody could say, "Hey, Maureen, you suck," and I'll be like, "You think they meant something like that?" Like I don't even what. It's okay. But some people, you say just nice shirt, they'll be very conscious of you, like, why did she say nice shirt? Like, is there something wrong with my shirt I wear all the other days? And like their head starts going out of control. So it's important to know who you're working with, kind of, what their sticking points are, and it gives you tips like that. And then also to know someone that compliments you as well.
What are your non-negotiables? Like this EA, this executive assistant, like they have to have these skills or be able to do these things other than what you talked about the DISC profile.
So I'm looking for somebody right now for like more of a personal / because we actually have 2 EAs, one in each kind of market. And I'm looking for somebody too. I'm looking for somebody maybe with some legal experience would be helpful in our roles, because there is a lot of legal documents. There's a lot of addendums that get done during these contracts. It's nice if somebody could just eyeball it and know, like, hey, I want to add this in or something. And then you could just tell them, and they're, smart enough to understand that a little bit would be helpful. And I think like a paralegal or something, because they would be great, like already tuned into dates on calendars that's where I need help. So I cannot hire somebody calendar challenged like me, because nothing would happen. So you find somebody that really fits your niche. I've had, you look for their resumes. How are is there spelling errors in there? If you're having somebody represent you to your investors and, set up presentations, you don't want spelling errors. You can't have anything like that. And we've seen that. Are they going to be customer facing, or is anyone ever going to see them? So their appearance may be, you have to make sure they're showered and dressed right and all that kind of stuff. Not that a normal person wouldn't be, but, you just, that could be the face of, to an investor or to a, the lender, perhaps, depending on what you're going to have them do. I need somebody that I have to trust them. I notice with my team, like if there's anything that kind of makes me wonder, or sometimes people will tell me something, and certain things they just stick in my brain, and I find out later like that wasn't quite the story. They were kind of fluffing something. Like I just have to get rid of them eventually. I just can't, because then I'm always wondering. Then I start questioning everything. So there's misunderstandings sometimes that we can work out, but once, you have to have trust, I think, especially we're dealing with a lot of money in our business. We're doing a lot of bank accounts, a lot of investor social security numbers. I mean, things like that. So you really have to have somebody that has really high integrity is important. Somebody that shows up on time, when you're going to have that call to interview them. I've had somebody late. They're like 5 minutes late to the call. I'm like, thanks, but we're good. Like, just don't bother. Like, I don't care what happened. I know it sounds terrible, but you can't, if they tell you a story and an excuse right then and you accept that, I mean, gosh, could you imagine what your next, year will be like with that person?
I know. I've been doing interviews the last couple of days over Zoom. It's amazing. Like, you knew this was happening. This wasn't a surprise.
Well, I've had times when, just for not an excuse, but like the Zoom, all of a sudden your computer updates. You're like, are you kidding me right now? Like, there are some excuses, but
I meant more like the way they present themselves.
Oh yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, it's crazy. But as far as the handling the assistant, and just make sure it's somebody that you can just, I'd say, like, just relax. I say I can't work with people where I have to watch every single thing I say, because I just I don't really have much of a filter. Kind of things just come out sometimes, and I don't like if somebody's really self-conscious or easily I don't know, put off or
feelings on their sleeve.
Yeah, exactly. So I just, we just have to be careful of that. So you find someone that, if you're really loud and boisterous, make sure you're working with somebody that's okay with, that. You want someone that's not going to be put off or offended, or, like, I tell people sometimes, like, you have to stalk me, like, with these dates. We just had some loan certification things that had to go through, and, like, they know, I'm like, you have to hunt me down. If these are not in by this date, like, hunt me down. And so they have to be aggressive enough to, like, really get my attention if I'm, forgetting signatures on something or something like that.
How are you finding these employees, or, specifically like executive assistants or people that are personal assistant?
I mean, I love referrals. I love when it comes from somebody I trust and they know of a great person. A lot of times executive assistants will know other executive assistants, or somebody that's a good paralegal. If you're doing a closing and you have a great paralegal who's on top of everything, be like, hey, I'm looking to hire an EA like that has some experience. Do you know anybody? Because a lot of times they went to school with people, or so that's a great way of kind of getting a referral. And there are headhunters. There's different aspects like that. I'm hesitant to hire just somebody you don't know. Like, I almost feel like that connection has to be there a little bit. Because you can't really believe resumes all the time. You could verify, but it takes a lot of work. And you get somebody in that role too. You have to really take the time, I think, to hire the right person, because once they're in that role, that's going to be a very hard role to disrupt. They're going to really be involved with a lot of stuff, and it's going to be hard to just pick somebody out and plug somebody back in. Yeah.
And is that a role, just like that person interacting with investors? How much do you have, other people like that, or allowing other employees interacting with investors?
It takes a long time before they would get access to, because you don't want, like, everything with the investors has to be right. You're dealing people's money,
right.
And sometimes good amounts of it too. And your reporting has to be correct. Like, you need someone on the ball, and that's just exact. And Jennifer that I have, she's great with the investors. And it took a little while before I could really let the reins go, because we had to make sure that that they could handle, that she could handle it. And even now, as we have different people move in through our finance group and our accounting team and stuff, and I always say, we can't touch the investors. Like, that's hers. Like, no, it's not getting done with the controller or in our normal realm. So I think you really have to be careful of who the face of your company is to investors.
And how do you think investors receive that, as far as, well, now I'm dealing with somebody else. I'm not getting to talk to a Maureen anymore.
They can still talk to me too. Like, they can always send me an email. I can give them a call. We reach out. They have my cell phone number. They can always text me as well. But they get comfortable with Jennifer as too. And she's the one now that she has a list of people for our next deal. When people will call her when they're looking. I don't even necessarily hear about it all the time. The money will just be raised. Like, it's because she has that list of when she does reach out to them. And then we have some investors too that, like, if we know they're a little isolated, or, she gets on and she'll talk to them. And, we have our friends, we know so-and-so is going in for a surgery and maybe he's a little older, so let's send him a basket or something. So she's the one that keeps track of all that stuff too. But she's very sweet and caring. As long as she's not after you for a signature a day, like she's just awesome. I love having her, and it goes, sometimes too, we get frustrated because we hire somebody, we put a lot of time and energy into them, and then we realize, you know, we made a mistake. But I try to look at it as a numbers game, right? So when I'm hiring somebody, I figure, okay, I know I'm going to need like probably 6 people before I find the right one, or 10 people sometimes. So when I have to do that, it sucks and it hurts because you have money and time and all that. But I just look at it as I'm one step closer to finding the right person. So I think that keeps me from getting discouraged. I'm like, okay, there's one more step closer to the right person. And I tell my team all the time, they get frustrated sometimes with people we bring in. They're like, why on earth would you hire this person? And like, well, we thought they were good, obviously, you know, and then we eventually get rid of them. I said, look, it's a numbers game. You know, you don't know until sometimes people really get in there.
Yeah. So how do you keep them? You know, like Jennifer, she's done so well. You know, what are things you have in place, or how, you know, why do they want to keep working for you?
No, that's a great question. I mean, I try to be very open and honest with the team. I enjoy seeing them rewarded and having fun. Like when I do give out bonuses for certain things. I try to have incentive games. We try to do things so you guys want everybody faced in the right direction, in the same direction. So, you know, when you're trying to incentivize, if you want, you know, higher rents, you try to say, okay, if I was a property manager, how would I feel incentivized by getting higher rents? You know, things like that. So just, you know, we'll try different things. We do bonuses when properties sell. You know, with Jennifer, she actually gets, so the asset company actually pays for a piece for her of every deal. So she actually has a little ownership in every deal that we do. So not only does she get that as a bonus, which you do have to, it is taxed like a 1099 thing. But anyway, as it is a bonus that stays in that particular deal though. And then when we sell it, she also sees that increase in it. So that's kind of a cool thing we implemented probably a year and a half ago or so that she enjoys. And everybody's a little different. I mean, Christmas, we try to, you know, be pretty generous and give bonuses to everybody and kind of have a party. And I mean, they want to work for a company that's, I think, that they believe in, right? That everybody's treated with respect. We do try to, in property management, there's a lot of like, I call it like cheerleader stuff or like a drama something. I don't know exactly what it is, but I find a lot of that. So in Georgia, we don't have that on our teams anymore. It just took a lot of like, keep getting rid of the people that are kind of, you know, starting that stuff. So that's something you have to keep, just having a good environment. Like people that just want to show up and work, like that's what you want. You know, you don't want people that are there to play games or have power trips with people. It's hard. Right. It's hard to find those right people. Yeah.
What about, you know, now we talked about how to find them and keep them. What about when you unfortunately have to fire somebody?
So I give chances for the most part, as long as it's not something where I'm not trusting somebody. I always say you can't teach work ethic. You can teach skills, but not work ethic. So we actually just had a instance with a secret shopper or a mystery shopper go around, and I didn't tell even my VP of operations. So nobody knew that this was happening. And she gave us great feedback. And so, but I can tell by what happened, it wasn't perfect. There wasn't a single site that was absolutely perfect, but I can tell by her feedback who are the just flat old lazy people that don't care, right? There's that type of person. And then there's the people that are trying. Maybe they didn't do it quite right or something, but they tried like heck to like do whatever they had to do. So those are like, okay, these people need more training, and these people are on the short list of like kind of getting out as soon as, you know, we get another good option for somebody or a referral for another person for that role, like we'll plug them into here for the most part. And that's what I really try to pay attention to is intent. Everybody screws up. I make mistakes. Everybody will make mistakes. Mm-hmm. It's like, what's your intent? And those are the kind of people you want to trust. Like I know with William, my business partner now, like even if he made a mistake, and not that he would, but even if he made a mistake, like I would know that he was doing what he thought was right. Like it wouldn't just be to poke at somebody or, you know, just some people just love chaos around them. I think they do things just to create that chaos and drama or something. And I just hate that kind of stuff. So I'd say look at the intent when somebody does make a mistake, and do they need training? Sometimes I have meetings that skip people, so I like to go to sites and I walk around and I like to talk to the maintenance person, say, hey, do you have everything you need? Is there anything I should know? I go to the maintenance people. I will, the managers I like to talk to directly. So we're getting rid of a regional layer, the VP of operations too, and just checking. So I always go when I show up at a site, like I'll say, okay, let's check out a couple of your recent turns. I want to make sure they're doing it correctly, making like what I'm expecting. And then I just kind of talk to them and see. So I think that means a lot to people too, when they know, because I do truly care. I want to make sure we're putting out a good product for our tenants. I want to make sure we're spending the money correctly. So for the investors. So I think when a team knows that you care, that they're with someone that cares, I think it makes a big difference. At least that's what I've been told by my team that, want to stay. Yeah.
Do you have any preferences as far as hourly versus salary?
So for us, all of our managers are salary, and our everybody else is hourly. So managers and up would be salaried employees. And everybody. I mean, we even have some 1099s once in a while. Sometimes we will have people at the site that'll help, pick up grounds or something that you technically have to 1099 them, which we do. You can't just give like rent deductions like a lot of people do. You have to make sure that that's recorded correctly. So like those kind of people we're a little flexible with, but otherwise either one is fine. It doesn't really make a difference to me. The salaries you just do want to watch when you have a manager that's running out at 4 o'clock that shows up at 8 o'clock, and it kind of makes you wonder a little bit. Where you have some managers, doesn't matter what the issue is, they're there. There's any issue with their property, they show up. They just you want somebody that's going to take ownership of that property and really treat it like their own. That's the most valuable type of manager there. And I always say somebody that's as nice as you let them be. So you want a manager that's pleasant and can welcome people, and even staff. I shouldn't say just the managers, just really anybody. But if they have to straighten something out, they can tell people they're late with rent. They don't have an issue with evicting someone that's not paying. Things like that are important.
So what about, going back to like the executive assistant, that role, what about being virtual or on site? Do you have a preference or a must one way or the other?
So one of our EAs is in Colorado, and she's pretty much remote. We don't have any properties out there. And then I have another one in Atlanta, who's more of a regional, but I really don't see her. I don't really see either one of them very often, just at a Christmas party, really. Sometimes I'll swing through the office for something in Atlanta, but so she is, I guess, technically like a virtual assistant when I really think about it. And I know you can get those for a pretty good cost. We do have some VAs that help with some tasks on the side. That's something that Will manages. I'm not the best delegator. I can delegate to Will because I know he'll get it done, but I'm bad with giving people stuff. I'm still a little bit of an A-type personality. So, but I think that they're a great resource, and some people are great at managing them, with lists. And I think you get the right ones too, depending on which country you go to and how good their English needs to be or is. But we use certain ones for design. We use them for, I've used them for some, like trying to visualize some capital plans that we had and different things like that. But if you can manage them correctly, I'd say, pay someone $5 or $7 an hour to help you out. But we're at the point now where we do need somebody physically as well. So that's something I've been toying with as well, as getting my own VA and then still having that person physically there.
When do you give somebody access even to like email and maybe sensitive information like that? I know we talked about just access to investors, but what about email and even calendar?
Yeah, so one of the VAs does have access to my calendar now, but that's it. And the email, I still haven't found that person. Like if Jen wasn't so busy, I would definitely without a doubt give her access to my email, but I really have to trust somebody and know somebody for a while, or unless there's somebody's like mom or grandmother that I know we can trust. But I still haven't found anybody to do that for me yet.
All right, Maureen. we are way past time this time, but any last things as far as just hiring that executive assistant specifically, or just any kind of staff that you want to leave the listeners with?
I say just keep your ears open. There's during this coronavirus thing that's going on now, somebody mentioned a law firm that was closing, and I heard this like 3 days ago, and it actually just hit me as I was getting ready for this. I'm like, as I told my husband, like, who did we just talk to, the law firm? Because I'm like, I need an assistant, and apparently it would be perfect. So, think about what kind of experience you want that person to have and where you can find those people. Like somebody that's worked in a doctor's office, they'd probably be great with calendar management and scheduling and things like that. So try to think outside the box. Also, people in restaurants, they're very service orientated. They're looking, how can I make this situation better? We've had some great managers come out of restaurants in the areas. We're like, hey, how are you doing? Like, you need to come work with me. And we did have a great person that came and worked with us from like a Mexican restaurant. But I say just look outside the box. It's not necessarily going to come in a resume. When you see somebody on the ball, even at a Cumberland Farms or a gas station, keep them in mind, because you just never know. Yeah.
Awesome. Maureen, thank you so much for your time and sharing your expertise. Tell the listeners how they can get in touch with you and learn more about you.
Sure. So our website is www.4mrei.com. And then my email is mmiles@4mrei.com.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Syndication Show, brought to you by LifeBridge Capital. LifeBridge Capital works with investors nationwide to invest in real estate, while also donating 50% of its profits to assist parents who are committing to adoption. LifeBridge Capital, making a difference, one investor and one child at a time. Connect online at www.lifebridgecapital.com for free material and videos to further your success.